What is going on, y'all? Gamers going here today, and we are right in the midst of draft season, right? Tuesday, right now. We're 2 days away from the NFL draft. The Chicago Bears have a few big key positions of need here coming into the draft, but I wanted to review every single position other than special teams that the Bears could be drafting and or looking at UDFAs and kind of guys to expect at each position group. So we're going to start it off with not a need, but a want. QB2. We're going to find our QB2 either in this year's draft or in the UDFAs. You had some opportunities to call, or you had some calls coming in for Tyson Bagent. It sounded like you're real high on him, didn't want to give him up. Sounds like the writing's kind of on the wall there that Tyson Bagent will probably get a contract elsewhere. Now, the QB group obviously is not one that I want you to really dig too deep into, right? We're looking at a group right now that nobody here is going to cause the Bears to reconsider Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams is the guy. You're looking at a QB2 in this year's class. Now, for the Bears, they have two seventh round picks, and obviously everybody can sign UDFAs. I don't think the Bears would look for anybody here really. I don't even know. They have 239 and 241. It might be even kind of a stretch for them to do that there even. Um, so I don't necessarily know that we're looking at drafted QBs. If they get drafted, probably not going to be very good. But like I said, it offers some flexibility here in the future, allows you to trade Tyson Bagent. There was some buzz, like I said, about Bagent being traded. So the names I want you to watch out for here in this year's class, and these are guys that are probably going to be in the seventh round, maybe UDFAs. I don't know if the Bears would draft one. You might see them kind of wait to the UDFAs to find their guy. But a guy I really like is Jalen Daniels. You can't see it right now, but I've pulled up his PFF scores. It's been kind of slowed down. He was really good in 2023. Hasn't been that guy, but he was a guy that showed flashes and kind of showed some of the ability to go off script that you saw with Caleb Williams, and which made Caleb Williams a really exciting prospect, right? And what Caleb Williams could do, Jalen Daniels has in the past had seasons where he can do that, right? 2023 was a smaller sample size. Played 3 games, 700 yards, but that's his best PFF grades. He's always been somebody that's been kind of hit or miss on the turnovers. Last year they weren't. This year or 2024 they were. Um, but I want you to really think about Kansas football. Put aside why or why not they were successful the last few years, right? This has been a team going into the last few years that has been like, oh, this could be the dark horse, like top 25 team. And a lot of that is because of Jalen Daniels. His ability to kind of, like I said, go off script at times. He is one of those guys that can go win you a football game, kind of pulling some magic out of the hat. So he is a guy that's really interesting, especially if you're looking at Caleb Williams and trying to find a guy that kind of fits the Caleb Williams mold. Obviously, a little bit different of a guy than like a Tyson Bagent. But if you're looking for kind of some of that creativity that Caleb Williams has as a guy to develop and sit behind him and eventually take the Tyson Bagent role of being QB2 for this team, Jalen Daniels, I think, is a really good option. He was limiting the turnovers in last year. You'd still like to maybe see the completion rate be a little bit higher, but Caleb has some of the same issues that you have here with Jalen Daniels. Jalen Daniels has a good deep ball, like I said, good creativity there, can escape the pocket, does a lot of things really well that I think could translate, especially as a developmental QB2. Um, the name that I think a lot of people had been looking into is Cole Payton. Now, Cole Payton, a little bit of a different style than Jalen Daniels. And if you actually read his PFF stuff, he is referred to as the next Taysom Hill, right? This is a guy that is pretty much well rounded, but played at a very low level of college football. Um, Coming off a 2,700 yard season, 16 to 4 touchdown interception ratio. Um, He's kind of a little bit more unknown, but he is a guy that's picking up steam as potentially being one of these late round QBs to go. I don't think he'll make it to the Bears pick. I could see somebody really liking kind of his flexibility, maybe um, to maybe play other positions also other than quarterback, right? Like obviously his position of drafting is a quarterback. Same thing with Taylor Green, but there's some possibility that you might see one of those two players flip positions going forward. So I don't really think he will make it to the Bears pick. But the other guy I want to lock down and kind of bring to attention as a guy you probably, this is one of the guys I think will probably be there, and maybe even as a UDFA. Um, and it's Sawyer Robertson. It's Sawyer Robertson, who I think is a better passer than he is a runner, obviously. He is not somebody that is going to necessarily be as creative as Caleb Williams, but he does have some sneaky athleticism to him and can go pick up some first downs. This is another guy that has posted really, really big numbers 3,600 yards, 31 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. You're going to want to see those kind of be a little bit more limited, but he's another guy kind of around that 60 range there, percent completions. But I think you really have another guy here that has some of the traits you look for. Um, Big arm, good size for a quarterback, to be a developmental quarterback and to be a QB too, which is ultimately what the Bears would be drafting if they draft one, or they'd be looking at the UDFA's. But like guys like Luke Altmaier, you're not going to really bring him up. Like Taylor Green, like I said, not going to really bring him up. There's some other options there. I just don't really think they're options the Bears really need to be locking in on. UDFA's, you could have guys like Joey Aguilar, who he had a pretty good season at Tennessee, but I'm not too into Diego Pavia. Obviously, super undersized, but a good competitor. So there's definitely some options here in that seventh round to undrafted range. But I think really the ones I would kind of key in on, guys with some upside, and Jalen Daniels, I think, being the one with the most upside here, would be Jalen Daniels. And then I don't think Cole Payton would be there. He'd be interesting if he was, but Sawyer Robertson's another guy I really like, especially to be kind of that Tyson Bagent kind of guy. I just don't see how he couldn't end up being a guy like Tyson Bagent there. All right, then we're going to get into the running backs. This is a position of significant need for the Bears. Huge, huge focus here. And I think you're really going to see them put an effort into trying to find the guy that's going to push DeAndre Swift. You saw it last year with Luther Burden pushing DJ Moore and then kind of allowing you to get that extra second round this year because you were able to trade DJ Moore. I think you're going to see the same thing happen with Swift here. You have a young guy who looked really good in his rookie year. And this is really interesting because you have obviously Jeremiah Love. That'd be the dream scenario for every team that needs a running back, right? But Jadarian Price, the kind of the takes on him are a little bit kind of up and down depending on who you talk to. Could he be a first round pick? Possibly. He's the pretty much the consensus RB2 in this class. I think you could probably have him and Mike Washington both as like 2A and 2B there. And there will be a significant range between the two if I had to guess. But Jadarian Price, I think, poses a lot of interesting questions here for the Bears. 25, probably a little bit too early, especially a team that's kind of looking for a left tackle, looking for an edge rusher. Running back's not the top priority. It is a priority. It is not the top priority. You probably don't want to go that high with him. I don't really see how Jadarian Price makes it all the way to the Bears' next pick at 57. Obviously, if he's not there at 57, he won't be there at 60. So I think really the only way to get Jadarian Price would be a trade down situation, or if you somehow were to acquire one of those picks, but probably between like 30 to 40. I don't see him going very far into the 40s. I think he gets picked up pretty quickly. But Jadarian Price is an option for the Bears. I just don't know that they'll be interested. A guy, though, at 57 and 60 that I really want you to kind of tune into is Mike Washington. He is a very, very interesting prospect. Kind of offers you the size, speed, balance, a little bit physical. He'll bump off tackles. He's really, really good power, but he's also really, really good speed. So this is a guy that I think can do it all well. a guy that I think could be a really interesting 1-2 punch next to Monangai. Obviously, Monangai will probably be your short yardage kind of guy, and Mike Washington can kind of really hone in on just being that dynamic back that catches out of the backfield and offers some speed and offers some ability there in the pass game as a blocker. But I really like Mike Washington as another guy there. And then I really, really am into one of these third round options. I don't know if he'll make it all the way to 89, but another guy that I really am high on is Jonah Coleman. Now, you might be like, Jonah Coleman, what does he do well? Well, he's a pretty good and willing blocking running back. I think when you are looking for running backs, especially in this range, you're looking for guys that can contribute in more than one way. And I think you look at Jonah Coleman, and he is somebody that, yes, he can go get you 4 or 5 yards in a given play, but he also would be very helpful in helping Caleb Williams, right? You need to have guys willing to step in there and block for him, and I think Jonah Coleman is that guy. He does pretty well in pass pro, a guy that I think could be a really fun pick for the Bears there. Now, if you wanted to kind of go different than what you have, right? Monangai kind of does some of the things Jonah Coleman does. Seth McGowan, though, this is a guy that I think is very, very different than the Monangai, right? And if you're looking for kind of a different guy in the backfield than Monangai, you have a guy here that is very explosive, has some good speed to him. He's able to read the gaps well, and he's somebody that kind of has that big playability to him. Whereas Monangai, you're probably not getting as many big yard runs, right? You're just getting really efficient running. But Seth McGowan, somebody I really, really like, and expect the Bears to kind of hone in on if he is there. Maybe around pick 129, you might see them even at 89 be interested in him. The issue with 129 is I think you're kind of in an interesting range where Emmett Johnson, he's another guy that does pretty well in blocking. He is got some good size to him, can play receiver. Just I don't necessarily know that that's the chip or the chess piece that we're looking for. Because I'm looking for more of the true running back guy that can be Swift's long-term replacement, not kind of the gadgety running back like an Emmett Johnson could be. Nick Singleton has some speed to him, but he's been on a downwards trend. Just kind of inconsistent. I like K-Tron. He's another guy that's really good as a contributor in the pass pro game, but another guy that just, I don't know if you're taking him at 129. So that kind of gives you a very long range before your next pick at 239 where you could get another running back. And I really like Noah Whittington here. Noah Whittington obviously has been a part of kind of a dual backfield and last year a trio backfield, right? So he's no stranger to that and kind of being one of the sugar and spice, right? He's been sugar, and you had Bucky who was spice or whatever, right? Thunder and lightning. He was your lightning, and Bucky was your thunder, and then last year Jordan Davison was the thunder, and right, like Noah Whittington has some explosive speed, and he is somebody that I think next to Monangai could be a really solid pickup. I don't know if he ever has like RB1 potential, but Noah Whittington as a guy that can come in and be a contributor right away. He's an older prospect. He is somebody that I think could come in and do it. At times, though, there were some fumbling issues, so that is a little bit of a concern there. But this is a guy that I think when you look at and you kind of hear what the staff and teammates talked about Noah, he's a guy that's been a leader, and he's a guy that's kind of done everything right, and it might not always show up on the football field, right, but when it does, it's big play, running down the sideline, getting a 50, 60-yard gain, right? So Noah Whittington, a guy I think would be a really interesting pick there in the running back room as well. Then we get two receivers. Receivers is very fun. I'm very excited for the receivers. Well, the Bears might be drafting one at 25. I know that's crazy. because the Bears don't really need to draft a first-round receiver. if Jordan Tyson is sitting there at 25, I want you all to kind of brace yourselves because the Bears might do it. That might be a true BPA situation. There is an injury there that is kind of pushing him down and out of favor with some people. Jordan Tyson, though, going into the season and if he wasn't injured, would probably be my receiver one. He just has the build of an outside receiver, has the build of a guy that can be a Pro Bowler. At times on tape, it looked like that also. But Arizona State had a down year last year from being obviously in the college football playoffs the year before. A lot of that was because of Jordan Tyson not really going back to his old self, right? Sam Levitt ended up transferring. I mean, Arizona State wasn't great last year. They weren't bad. Jordan Tyson had a solid season. Obviously, I think you'd probably prefer the season prior when he had 10 touchdowns, 1,000 plus receiving yards, 100 plus catches, well, targets with 75 plus catches. But I think you really are a guy in a true BPA situation there with Jordan Tyson if he happens to be there at 25. So definitely watch out for that. But then you get to the next range, and these are guys in 57 to the 89 range. You have 3 picks in that range, 57, 60, and 89, that you could be looking at. And the first guy I want to mention is Skyler Bell. Skyler Bell, to me, obviously, I'm very high on him. He's the picture on the screen you're looking at right now. But he is a guy that at times was just unstoppable. Like, you get the ball in his hands, who's stopping him? He might not be the biggest guy on the field. He might not be the fastest guy on the field. But he sure is hard to take down. He's got good vision to him. He's very slippery. He's somebody that I think if you're looking, and this is where I think the Bears could find a gem like a Skyler Bell. If you're looking for a third receiver that can be real slippery and kind of turn in like a 5 to 10 yard gain into a 20-yard gain, I think Skyler Bell's that guy. I really do. I think he's kind of one of these last ones that kind of operate in that middle range of the field. And then you start getting to some guys that are going to be a little bit more deep ball threats early on in their career. But Skyler Bell, somebody I really, really am a big fan of. Then we get into Bryce Lance. He's another one that I'm really a big fan of. But like I said, we're getting into our deep ball threats. And Bryce Lance is probably somebody that you're looking at early on as just a deep ball threat. Very fast, 6'3", has the traits of an NFL number one. The issue is a lot of it has been straight line speed. He very fast, like I said. I don't know that the route running is ever going to be necessarily one of his strong suits. So early on, though, if you have Burden and you have Rome, you don't need to worry about that necessarily. You could just draft him for year one, being that guy to stretch the field vertically. And we've seen Caleb Williams overthrow guys. Bryce Lance can go up and get it. So big body receiver, very fast, going to be a deep ball threat early in his career. We'll see what else he can turn into. Another guy I want you to lock in on is De'Zhaun Stribling. This is a guy that I think a lot of Bears fans need to get familiar with and familiar with fast. Big receiver, 6'2", strong, willing blocker. But this guy, you're not gonna have a guy here that's gonna be this insane route runner either. But a guy that early on in his career, like I said, can win with some ability up top. And if you're looking at Lance and you're looking at Stribling, I think this is probably the safer of the two. I think there's some more upside with Lance, right? Lance has some really good speed to him and kind of has those traits. You don't have the same with De'Zhaun Stribling, but he's somebody that I think's a lot safer. If you're looking for a guy to beat out Khalif Raymond, give Ja'Day Walker some competition, I think De'Zhaun Stribling can do it. And then we also get to pick 129, and I think this is where you can start to see some really, really big gambles, right? Yes, you have Jacoby Lane and Kevin Coleman, who a lot of people like, Eric Rivers, who I really like, and he's going to be a guy that I think teams could be interested in to play special teams early on. Very slippery guy, can make some big plays when he gets to space. I think Ben Johnson specifically could be really interested with Eric Rivers, kind of his ability to probably play the slot early on. Like I said, very slippery to take down. Could be a special teamer early on in his career as well. But then we get Jeff Caldwell, who, if you're looking at Bryce Lance and falling in love with like, oh, big size speed combo, deep ball threat, not a great route runner. Jeff Caldwell's the same thing. 6'5", 23 years old, but big speed there. Not a great route runner. Um, Very inconsistent. Bryce Lance is way better at contested catches, but Jeff Caldwell, if you're looking for a guy to go beat you downfield and just win off straight line speed alone and kind of work on the developmental side afterwards, after kind of getting those traits in the building, Jeff Caldwell is another interesting pick there. I don't know if they're going as high as 129. They definitely won't make it to the seventh round picks, but I think the receiver class is really interesting here this year specifically. But Jeff Caldwell, a guy that I think could be a low-key steal if you're able to kind of turn him into a little bit more reliable hands there. And then the last guy that I want you to lock in on in the seventh round, though, is Lewis Bond. Lewis Bond, another one of these guys, not super big, only 5'11", catches the ball really well. 80% contested catch rate. Put up almost 1,000 yards last year off of 88 grabs. He's going to be a guy that works in kind of that slot role, probably, if I had to guess. But this is another guy that I think at times really unstoppable. Get the ball in his hands, he can go make you a play. And I think the Bears are going to be interested in playmakers like that. And it will not hurt him to be from Boston College. Ryan Poles likes to draft Boston College players. That's his alma mater. So he's probably seen some Lewis Bond highlights. All right, then we get to the tight ends. Tight ends is a real fun one because Bears aren't going to be drafting one high, but they could potentially be getting one with their seventh round pick because they need one, right? And I think you could see them really lock in on guys that are going to be solid blockers. I mean, you have guys like Riley Nowakowski, Max Bredston, just guys that I don't think will make it there, to be honest with you. Marlon Klein, just guys I don't think will be there. The first one that I think you might get a chance at 239 is Will Kakmarak. I think this is another guy that, just like I said, willing, strong. You're looking for, in my opinion, you're going to end up looking for a third tight end here in this year's draft. Obviously, Durham Smythe has moved along. You saw them want Durham Smythe enough to trade for him. I think they're going to invest in kind of that tight end that's going to be pretty much just a blocker, can slip out, get some maybe 5 to 10 grabs in the season. I think Will Kakmarak is probably the best of those guys in this year's draft class. I'm really interested in him as being kind of that tight end 3 and the guy that I think you really could turn into that Durham Smythe role. Then you got another guy further down the board that I think has more juice as a receiver. And I'm going to be honest, I don't know if he has undeclared from the draft or whatever. And his ADP is actually 139, but his PFF ranking's 417. Shimon Mateer. He's another guy I really like. He's going to be a solid receiver in the NFL. This is a guy that he's put up 300 yards the last 2 years. Not going to be like an insane receiver or anything like that, but when you're looking for a tight end 3, you're looking for guys with reliable hands, willing blockers. Shimon Mateer checks all those boxes and probably is the guy with the most juice that might be there in that round. And then the last guy, I'm going to be a homer here, and I'm going to take Tanner Arkin. Guy that's contributed really well to the blocking game there in Illinois. He's got the size to him, 6'4", 265 pounds. When you're looking at Durham Smythe replacements, I think those are kind of the 3 guys that I would lock in on. Is you're looking for guys that can contribute some to the pass game, but they're really going to be willing and able blockers, and I think those are kind of the traits that those 3 guys show. Oh, you didn't even get to see Will Kakmarak. That's unfortunate. Well, sorry, Will. All right, the next one is the tackle group. In the tackle group, we can talk all day. We can talk all day. It is headlined by Caden Proctor, Maxie Anachor, and Caleb Lemieux. I don't think anybody else might make it 225. Maybe you have something crazy happen, but you're looking for a left tackle. And I think there's some good options at the top. I don't know that they're all going to be there at the top, and if you're true to your BPA, you might not take Max Giannaccio, or you might not take Caleb Lomu. You might be willing to wait for a guy later down the line. Where I'm really locking in is a guy like Caleb Tiernan out of Northwestern. I think you're looking for guys that can maybe start this year. Obviously, you have Braxton Jones this year, Jedrick Wills. You don't really know what he's going to bring to the table, but Ozzy Trapillo is your long-term option right now. He's going to be returning from injury. I'm thinking 2 years down the road, who's going to be the guy to push Ozzy Trapillo? And I think Caleb Tiernan makes a lot of sense. Then you get into kind of the day three, early day three guys that I think could be really developmental options. There's two guys I really like. Austin Barber, huge left tackle, good athlete, very very much unpolished at this point, but the frame athleticism combo makes a guy that has a lot of potential to maybe turn into something if you can develop him at the 129. Um, if you're looking for an Austin Barber at 129 and maybe he's off the board, you want another developmental tackle. How about one of the biggest ones out there, 6'9", Travis Burke? This is a guy that I think might even slide to late day two. Just a very interesting prospect. I don't necessarily know that he's going to be some sort of superstar, but he does have some interesting traits, being that big, moving pretty well. A guy that is probably going to need to have a little bit more development than maybe Austin Barber does, but a guy that if he hits, Travis Burke could be a home run pick, right? This is a monster of a man there at the left tackle spot. So I'm really locked into the left tackle position. But I really think you do see them pick up one of those guys there. Then we can get to the guards. The guards is going to be really short. I'm gonna be honest. This guard class is not the class for the Bears to be selecting one. I think there's really just two guys here that I like. Both kind of around the same. Um, well, no, one's around 129, and the other will be maybe with one of your seventh round picks. DJ Campbell at 129. Out of Texas, big guy there, run blocker, physical. Not great getting out on the second level of blocks. Not great in the pass game. Like I said, developmental guy, but you do have the strength there. At times, he's able to just bully guys. So I think you can really lock in and say, you know what, a guy like DJ Campbell could make some sense for us if we're looking for the developmental route. And then another guy, we're already kind of looking at the developmental route. You get Micah Morris in the seventh round out of Georgia. He's another guy that's massive, man. But I think you're kind of playing with fire there. Not guaranteed he'll be there in the seventh round. But this is another guy that's shown some good tape and some really bad tape at Georgia. You're kind of hoping for kind of the more consistent version of him long term. But Micah Morris, another guy that I think could be a very interesting pickup there for the Bears. Then we get to the centers. The centers is the position that's going to probably have the most talk for the Bears in the draft room. And I think it's headlined obviously by Sam Hecht. There's been a lot of buzz linking the Bears with Sam Hecht probably around the 57th, 60th pick. PFF doesn't like him that much. They have him around the 80 something. I don't think you see that. I think you do see the Bears, if Sam Hecht is on the board at 60, go Sam Hecht. It seems like they've done the most work around him. You might see them maybe take a look at Jake Slaughter, another guy that I think might even be able to offer you some positional versatility early on. If you do need him to maybe help out at guard at any point. You got Connor Lew, who some people have as the best center in this class. But I think you're really going to see the Bears kind of try to lock in on these centers that have led successful offenses, right? That it's kind of what you saw them do last year, with obviously Dalman, right? You're kind of trying to win like mentally at that position and find guys that can kind of identify certain blitzes and certain things coming at them. That kind of makes guys like Logan Jones and Connor Lew, Jake Slaughter, Sam Heck, that gives the Bears a lot of buzz to go there, right? Like that's kind of what they're looking for. And then once you get out of kind of that third round range, I think the next best guy would be kind of waiting for maybe a guy like Pat Coogan, been a part of a winning program. Might not be the most physical, might not be the greatest anchor to him, but I think a guy that if you're looking at Bradbury and you need somebody to step in, he can do it, and a guy that can learn behind Bradbury, right? I think Pat Coogan's like 6'5", but obviously if you're the center for a national championship winner, you're probably a pretty good center. So Pat Coogan, another option there. Probably a day 3 pick there though for Pat Coogan. Then we get to the edge group. The edge group is going to be the most fun of them all because I think the Bears are going to get somebody really, really good. It's headlined by Ruben Bain and David Bailey. Both are far from the Bears draft range. You might see Ruben Bain slide a little bit. There was a report that came out with some of stuff from his past, but I don't really think that's going to impact his draft status to the point where the Bears have a chance at him. You might see him maybe make it to the early teens, but I doubt it. David Bailey will not be a Bear. That simple. They don't have a chance. Unless they trade up, they do not have a chance for David Bailey. A guy that starting to sound like won't be there either is Akeem Mesidor. He's a guy that I really liked, a guy that I was linking to the Bears. Big time pass rusher, played opposite of Ruben Bain, right? You're looking at a guy that has been part of a dynamic sack group with Ruben Bain. And you're hoping maybe you can get him paired up alongside Montez Sweat, an older prospect. That's kind of where you're hoping he slides. But it sounds like he's going to probably be gone. It sounds like Keldrick Folk might even be gone. Another elite athlete, very strong player. Never really always brought it together in the pass rush. But Keldrick Folk has a lot of the traits you look for. And another guy that 2 seasons ago had a really good season, posting 9 sacks. So, I mean, if you really think on pass production, you might be able to replicate that with Keldrick Folk. Then T.J. Parker, another guy here that I really started to like during this draft process. I think he does a lot of things at a high level. I don't know that he necessarily has an elite trait, but somebody that I think you're looking at a guy that could be a very consistent player for you. A guy that I think, worst case scenario, gets you maybe 5 or 6 sacks in a season. But a guy that I think does have that upside to maybe get pushed for double-digit sacks. So another guy really, really interested in there with TJ Parker. Then you get into kind of that next crop of edges where it's really confusing and you're going to have a lot of different teams rate them a lot of different ways. And that's starting with Cassius Howell. Cassius Howell, the tape is great. The size, if you were to forget the tape and just look at, is this guy built to play in the NFL, would tell you no, right? Small arms, just really undersized, a guy that might just end up being a situational pass rusher. But if you watch the tape, Cassius Howell is really, really good. Does that translate to being a 3-down player in the NFL? I don't know. If you're a first-round pick, you probably need to be a 3-down player. I don't know that he is. And that's why you got a lot of scouts doing their work, right? They're paid to make these decisions. Cassius Howell is a very hard prospect to evaluate because if you look at just tape and you didn't know anything about kind of how he measured and you're just watching it, you'd say that's a really good football player. So it'll be interesting to see how teams treat him. He's somebody that I've kind of soured on because there's been those concerns with the size there, but a guy that, if you watch the tape, is a first-round player. Then you get into the next round of guys. I think they're the more tradesy guys. You got Zion Young and Malachi Lawrence. Both got good physical tools with size and length that I think could make them good NFL players. But you're getting into this range of guys that just don't have necessarily elite traits, or they have limits to what they can currently do that push them into the second round or third round, right? But I really think both of those guys are interesting. Both of them could go first round. And then you get into the guys that I think a little bit more situational early on in their careers, guys that might be able to kind of develop a 3-down role, but guys that early on I don't see that for them. R. Mason Thomas is a pass rusher. Didn't post insane numbers, but I think he can do it. Gabe Yack is consistently getting better each year at Illinois. Great pass rusher. I think he posted 9 or 10 sacks last season. Deni Dennis Sutton, I really like. Another guy has the traits, also has the production, but never really took that next step that we wanted to see last year. But that also could be because Penn State was just having a down year. Then you have Derek Moore, another guy, took a step, big pass rusher. And then you have Romello Height there out of Texas Tech. Another guy that's played in a duo that can go get you some sacks. So there's a lot of options in that range. And then if you don't get any of them, which I think they'll at least get one of the guys I mentioned, I think you're probably waiting to 129 and you're going after a Mason Riger, a Max Llewellyn, a Caden Curry, or maybe you're even going after another guy like further down the board, a little bit more of a project, posted back-to-back double-digit sack seasons, and Keyshawn James Newby. I don't know that it's going to translate to the NFL. His sacks, he played at a smaller school. I think he played at New Mexico. Um, but if you're taking swings for a guy that can go post some sack numbers, he's an interesting prospect there. Then we get to the defensive tackles. I've started to come back around on Caleb Banks from the time I've written this. Um, Caleb Banks, I think, is probably the one with the most tools to be successful in the NFL. At times at Florida, he wasn't super consistent. There is a foot injury that's been concerning and kind of made me sour on him a little bit. But I do think Caleb Banks is ultimately, when it's all said and done, the best defensive tackle in this class. I really like Peter Woods in this class. I don't know that I love either as like, oh, they're for sure first rounders, but I do like both of them. Then you get Caden McDonald, who I think is very much a good player, but I don't necessarily know that he's worth the first round pick when you kind of factor in that early on and maybe forever he might just be a good run stuffing defensive tackle, right? You might kind of want some pass rush upside there, and maybe that's where the Bears do want him is they weren't great in run defense, so Caden McDonald's not necessarily a hard thing to fathom, right? But he's somebody that I think you might be looking for a little bit more pass rush juice. Christian Miller, I think, is a well-rounded player, but just don't really think he has the anchor to be a starting defensive tackle in the league. But I think if you're bringing him in as a DT2 or DT3 early on in his career and giving him some time, he might be able to develop that. But I think the Bears are kind of at a little bit more of a need now basis. You got Lee Hunter, who just you look at him. He won a lot of football game, a lot of snaps just because he kind of has that strength to him. Um, he's obviously from Texas, right? Like he's got that country boy strength. Just I'm stronger than you. What are you going to do about it? That's not going to work in the NFL. So is he able to kind of adjust to that? We'll see. Then you get into the next crop of defensive tackles, and I think this is maybe where the Bears will find their guy. Um, Obviously, we got to talk about the earlier guys because the Bears have a need at DT. But I think you probably see them fall in this range. Grayson Halton, smaller, going to be faster. Pass rushing defensive tackle. I think he's only like 6'2". Then you get the kind of the stronger guys, the guys that gonna be kind of rotational guys early on in their careers. Might not ever amount to much more than that. But you look at a team that had Billings for a while, right? There's a few guys here that I think could fill that role, and that's Big Citrus, Dominique Orange, Darrell Jackson, and Dante Corleone, all guys that I think can be real big space eaters, can be impactful in the run game. Don't know that they'll be super impressive in the pass defense, but there are some guys there that they can eat up some space there. And then here's some guys that I want to take swings on. We get to maybe pick 89, pick 129, and you're like, I'm not in love with Big Citrus, or I'm not in love with Dante Corleone here. I want to take a swing on a defensive tackle. These are guys that I think we just don't know enough about yet, but they do have some high-level traits. Rayshawn Benny, he's somebody that a lot of people are starting to sound like they do like, but a one-year starter at Michigan, how much of what he can do can translate. Caleb Proctor, small level school, looked really, really good, dominated that level. And then you had Zane Durant, who, like I said, that defensive line at Penn State just not very good. Last year, just as a team, they weren't very good. And I think you got a lot of guys kind of check out. But Zane Durant, a guy that once upon a time I thought would probably be a third, fourth round pick easily. So you might be able to take a swing at him at 129, and it might work out for you. Next, we get to the linebackers, and we have a crop of them here at the 57-60 range that might be there that could be interesting pickups for the Bears. Starting with Jacob Rodriguez, I don't think he'll be there. I think he is the second best linebacker in this year's draft, depending on what you call Arvell Reese. I really like Jacob Rodriguez, the ability to force turnovers. I just don't think he will make it this far, but I would be really happy if he did. Jake Golden, another guy, he's out of Cincinnati, really good linebacker. He probably is going to be around this pick. Don't know if he makes it all the way to 57. I think Josiah Trotter does make it. I do. And Anthony Hill also at this spot could really be guys that the Bears lock in on. Josiah Trotter, I think, just makes a lot of sense for what the Bears are trying to do. I think you're looking at a guy that can push Sanborn down the rotation a little bit, right? Um, you looking to get faster. That's something that I think Josiah Trotter gives you. Same thing with the Anthony Hill there. I don't really know if they would be players on Kyle Lewis, safety linebacker hybrid, chess piece for the defense. I think you're going to see them try to find a little bit more consistent TJ Edwards replacement than Kyle Lewis, who might be just this chess piece on defense. So I think like a guy like Josiah Trotter really makes a lot of sense. And then you get to the 89 pick, and these are guys that I think will make it there. Keyshawn Elliott, Deontay Lawson, both guys that I think help you in the run game, add speed that TJ Edwards is starting to lose. And then you're really getting into the day three guys. These are guys that I think could be contributors. Probably looking more so like the DeMarco Jackson of last year, where they'll step in when they needed. I think DeMarco Jackson does take a step this year and will be a little bit more consistent. But a guy that I think you really starting to get into guys that I think just will be rotational at this point. Bryce Betcher, the center fielder for the Astros, Bryce Betcher, Torian York, and Caleb Elam's Orm. All these guys I think are a little bit better Tremaine Edmonds replacements as the guy that can run stuff. Solid coverage guys. And then you got a guy in the 7th round that I'm really interested to see if he makes it. And there's a few of them. Red Murdoch and Jack Kelly. I think both of them just play the kind of game where you're going to force fumbles. It's going to be hard hitters. These are guys that try to make plays. I don't know that either of them make it to the Bears second round or the 7th round pick, but I'm very interested to see if they do, because I think Jack Kelly and Red Murdoch could be interesting pickups. They won't be guys that are consistent. They'll be rotational, but I think they could earn kind of themselves a role by punching the ball out a few different times. And then you get Harold Perkins, who I want to bring up because the Bears will probably look at linebacker. Very polarizing player. Great athlete. Could be kind of this defensive chess piece. Struggled to put it all together. Not that good of a tackler. So as a linebacker, really kind of confusing. But he has a lot of the traits that you're looking for to develop. And if he does hit, you get him in the 6th, 7th round. Harold Perkins, elite level athlete. And here's another thing that I want you to kind of consider, especially if you're getting him at like 239. You have Deon Bush, you have Jack Sanborn, you have DeMarco Jackson, you have Noah Sewell if needed. You don't need a linebacker to hit. You want them to hit, obviously. You're wanting to maybe get something better than Sanborn. You don't need him to be better than Sanborn. So Harold Perkins could be another high interesting upside swing there. And then if you're looking for kind of a potential Noah Sewell replacement, and so you don't have to re-sign him in the future, Jimmy Rolder, how about him? He's another guy that I think just really good tackler. If you're looking for a guy that comes in and you don't really lose a step, he might not necessarily be a big time playmaker in terms of forcing fumbles or great in coverage or anything like that, but I don't think he gets very many things wrong when it comes to kind of reading where you're going to go. Jimmy Rolder might be your guy as well. Then we get to the corners. Corners, another fun one. I love talking about the defense this year because that's where the Bears should focus a lot of their attention. Um, I don't think you see the Bears go first round corner. Jermod McCoy's interesting. If he slides, could happen. I'm going to assume it doesn't. I don't think that they should be players on Avion Terrell. Monsieur Delane would be long gone. Jermod McCoy is interesting. I really like Colton Hood, who is mentioned in one of my targets here. But I'm going to go down the list in the order I read it. Um, I guess technically I should probably go based off the order of when they might get drafted. 25, if you are looking for an outside corner, I think Colton Hood, his willingness to get physical with some receivers, will be opposite, obviously, of Jalen Johnson. Looking for a playmaker there. I think Colton Hood makes some sense to you. I don't think he makes it to your second round pick. You might see a guy like Chris Johnson slide the end of the first round. Just another guy that I really think could be an impactful player, good playmaker. But I think both of those guys, guys that probably don't make it to 57, so you'd have to take them at 25. Don't know if the Bears would be willing to take them at 25. But then we get the guys that will probably be there at 57 or could be there. D'Angelo Pons, very small, very good football player. That's the way to put it. And this is kind of talking about the nickels here. There's a few different nickel corners that I'm looking at in this year's draft. D'Angelo Pons is the peak of that. You're looking for a guy that could potentially move Kyler Gordon away from the nickel, maybe to safety, maybe to outside corner. And Keith Abney is also in there. So you just have two really good nickel corners here in a good corner draft. And then you're getting to the guys at 89, and then maybe even further down at 129, or maybe even later than that. I think it really starts to fend out after Keith Abney. Is Chandler Rivers at a Duke. Really solid player. I think you can play him outside, but you're probably looking to move him inside. And then a guy kind of more so fit to be inside at 129. A little bit of a reach here. Jaden Kennedy, who I think had a really good year for himself at Oregon. Very aggressive kind of play. You're looking for guys to make plays, especially on this Dennis Allen defense. Jaden Kennedy could be the name there at nickel corner. Then we get into this very interesting realm of guys that I think can play safety. They might even play some nickel. They can play corner. They can kind of be it all. It's headlined by Keontae Scott, Jalen Kilgore, and Trayden Stukes. I think all three of them are athletic enough and good enough to transition to any of those positions. Trayden Stukes is the guy that has been receiving the most love. There's been some people that have been real high on him. I heard the other day that somebody was like, this guy could be like an easy first round pick, has the traits to do it. Bigger, 6'2", wasn't always super successful against in the contested catch realm, but a very interesting player. And then if you're looking for kind of some of these outside corners to give Tyreek Stevenson a little bit of a nudge. Davidson Igbinosun does get penalized a lot, but I think he is kind of that physical corner that Tyreek Stevenson is that could push Stevenson out. Devin Moore, another one, good playmaker, does have some injury history there that you'd have to kind of adjust to. Malik Muhammad, not a very physical corner, good coverage corner. Will have to add some weight probably to be a little bit more physical and not get pushed around as much. And then you got Takario Davis, which is a really interesting prospect to me because he's big and fast, but not super physical. Handsy at sometimes. Just never really put it all together. But I think Takario Davis, very similar to Trayden Stukes, has kind of some of those skills that you just can't teach and could potentially be a guy that will be very, very impactful in the NFL. Then we get to safety. This is going to be where we wrap it up, and this is where I think the Bears might start it off. Like I said earlier, there's some guys in here that are tweeners. Keontae Scott, Kilgore. You might even have Trayden Stukes in that group. Kyle Lewis is in that group. The names I want you to really dig down on, though, are Caleb Downs, Dillon Thieneman, and Emmanuel McNeil-Warren. I think the Bears will draft one of these three guys. Caleb Downs probably long gone. I think Caleb Downs will be off in the top 10. Dillon Thieneman might not make it. Emmanuel McNeil-Warren might not make it. But if one of those guys are there, I fully expect the Bears to select them. And you look kind of at what all those three do well. Obviously, been hearing Caleb Downs' name for a while, big time playmaker. Dylan Thieneman, I think more so in the leader realm is where he really wins. Has he showed a good 40, but I didn't really think he played at that speed. And then you have Emmanuel and McNeil Warren that I think you just look at him and his ability to force fumbles and create turnovers. I think that's another guy that Dennis Allen would just fall in love with. Then you get this kind of the second crop of safeties. AJ Halsey headlines that one. I don't know that he'll be there at 57, and I don't think you should take him at 25. So AJ Halsey, not somebody I did too much digging on. At 60 though, I think Kamari Ramsey could be a target. He a little bit of an injury history there, but I think if you kind of put that aside, could be a top 60 player in this class. And then you get to kind of the tradesy guys at 89, that you're kind of gambling that they could be starters. Genesis Smith, really good athlete. Can you develop him to be consistent? Zakee Wheatley, not much of a contributor inside the box. Do you think you can get him to do that? Um, but do you want a good playmaker that might not be a great tackler? Well, Bud Clark's your guy. Do you want a guy that might not ever really be much more than what he is, but he's just a solid contributor right now? Maybe Michael Taffe is your guy, right? Jonathan Owens type B. So, I mean, the safety group is definitely an interesting one, but it does thin out real quick. So I really want to lock in on those top three. But anyways, thank you for watching. Is there somebody that you want the Bears to select that I did not mention? Right, we did cover all the positions. Is there somebody I'm not thinking of? Is there somebody that you're looking at and they're like, well, if he makes it to the 6th round, that's our guy. Let me know who one of your guys are, who you're gonna pound the table for. Let me know. It's draft week. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.